yeah, it just depends on what you're dealing with. So it just depends on what you're dealing with. Methinks, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and people forget that, but it is what it is. It just depends on what you're doing. But that's my own personal opinion. I know some people will disagree. We were having some audio issues and I had to work it out because I'm using my other PC, not my main PC, where everything's set up the way I want it. Um, but we had some good discussion, and hopefully you guys got it. If not, we'll just redo
Good
it in
night.
the future because I'm not going
Yeah.
back over it now. But basically, we were talking about the anniversary of the NES, the
Yes.
35th anniversary of the NES. 35 years old, which means it's old enough to own a mortgage and maybe have some kids, maybe not. I don't know. It's definitely old enough to have a mortgage, though, and a car note if it wants to.
Yeah.
But anyway, finally, I think we can move on to the next topic. Happy 35th anniversary, NES. Hopefully, you guys can continue to knock it out the park. Maybe Nintendo might do something. Probably not, though. So, with that being said, our next topic is what we want in our idealized RPG. I'll let
Ooh.
you go first.
Oh boy. This is something that could go on for a good while, but I'll s- I'll be concise with at least 3 points for my RPG. One, it has choices that actually could be. Two, it has a great battle system that actually is hard to cheese at times, but is worth it when you do it right. And of course, a story that you could alter, even if slightly, at least slightly to a point that's recognizable,
Fair
and
enough.
be able to play over and over again.
Repetitiveness. Well, I mean replayability. I can see all of that. I personally would just want to play an RPG. I would like to play an RPG that was in a dynamic world where it wasn't waiting on you, the player, to do something. Like it would be interesting to play an RPG that was maybe set in land maybe the size of Australia, and basically there were their own little factions and kingdoms and countries and shit
Stories.
there, and they have their own thing going on. And yeah, I mean, you start the game as a nobody, so you're not going to be saving the world or anything shit like that in the beginning of the game. As a matter of fact, if you think you're going to pull out your sword and take on a group of people, the only thing you'll accomplish is getting your ass kicked.
I
But
was going to say, stomp.
if you put the time in, you can make yourself into a badass character.
But in a world like today, are people really that patient?
If you're playing an RPG, that's kind of like goes hand in hand with the genre, isn't it? Like you got to put in the time.
Yeah. So if anything, I was remembering the world that we live in and how some people are impatient as F. So that's why I said that in a world like ours right now, I worry about that a little bit. But then again, it probably is better than the hand holding.
I mean, personally, um, I mean, I just prefer RPGs. Like, I'm tired of RPGs where nothing's going on until the main character comes in. I would because that's unrealistic. This is supposed to be a living, like, okay, it was acceptable when you were playing like RPGs on 8 and 16 and 32, 64-bit systems. But with all of the technology we have now, you can't have a dynamic a dynamic world where there's shit going on whether or not you're doing anything. Like, that bothers me. It's like, it's like let me get this straight. Your village was under siege by orcs, and you just been waiting for some random person to come in and take this shit out. You didn't go to the local lord and get help. If the local lord was fucking up, you didn't go to his boss and get help. Like, there's like
You
all of
didn't
these
take up
things.
arms.
Yeah, there's all this shit that, like, there's all these failures where it's just, oh, we're waiting on you to come do something. It's unrealistic, and to, like, with all the technology we have now, gaming should be moving forward, not backwards or staying still in game development. And unfortunately, with RPGs, most of them, the only, I'm using air quotes, innovation they're adding is essentially just they're
VA.
mix no, they're mixing shit from other genres into RPGs. They're like, it's an RPG, but you also have cards. You can also drive a car and run people down. It's like, what the fuck does that have to do with the RPG? Well, whatever, man.
Mm-hmm. F that SM out. I mean, seriously. Some people can come up with a better RPG system than just wait around all over. At least as far as I could tell.
Like, okay, I'll give an example. It would be really cool if you played an RPG where, like I said, you initially, maybe they take the Dragon Age origin route where you can choose one of like 8 different origins that give you like a certain template. Like, I'm a former soldier who was part of a kingdom that lost a war. And so my home village was razed to the ground, and now new people are living in the location. So I'm homeless. I'm a veteran, but so you might start out with better combat skills than another origin, but you're pretty much just, you have nothing and you're just trying to make a way. And maybe like you're just like, okay, since I have combat skills, I'm going to join a mercenary group. The mercenary group winds up contracting themselves out to another kingdom as like an irregular unit for military exercise. And then basically, like, that's how you get money in the beginning of the game. And then, but there's shit going on. Like, that kingdom's at war with another kingdom. And initially, you're just a little unit. What you're doing really is not going to have a great import of what's going to happen in that kingdom. But maybe as you level up, as your skills get better,
You'll rank up and get
you'll
more importance.
exactly, to the point where maybe you do make a major contribution to the war, and the kingdom you signed up with, they win. Maybe the king gives you like, you can either have some land or some money. You take the land, so now you have a home. You have like, it's kind of shitty in the beginning because they don't give a fuck about you really, but they got to give you something for what you did. So you get like maybe a little house someplace that no one really cares about. And now you're like, okay, well, now I have a home. I have someplace I can live. Okay, well, let me go and make some more money so I can build this shit up. And over time, stuff happens. Other kingdoms in that area are having wars. Trade caravans are different political factions are doing shit. That makes sense instead of what we've been seeing in most RPGs. Yeah, man, we get raided every night, and we were just waiting on some random person to come in and save the village. Come on, man.
It kind of bites when you think about some of those.
So, yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, it's kind of one of the reasons that I'm just tired of certain RPG. Like, I'm like, when people get excited, like, man, this is gonna be great. Most of these RPGs are trash.
I never say they were trash, though. If anything, I see a little hope in them.
So, I mean, clearly, I mean, like most of the modern RPGs that we see are either their RPG mechanics have been stripped down, have been stripped out, or so pared down that they're not even worth playing anymore.
Which kind of hurts when you think about it.
I mean, look at the jump between the last Fallout game that we got, mainline Fallout game that we got before Fallout 4 was Fallout New Vegas. Fallout New Vegas is a proper RPG. There's leveling, you go around, you do side quests, you gain companions, you talk to people, you gain skills. As you level up, you can apply skill points to skills, which in turn means that you can use those skills in order to do certain actions and get around stuff. For example, at one point in the game, there's this town that's been taken over by criminals, and you can go in and rescue the deputy of the sheriff. The sheriff who's been murdered in his bed, like he and his wife were beheaded. Okay, but you can go rescue the cowardly deputy and take out the criminals. And the deputy says, "We need a sheriff." It's like, why can't you be the sheriff? Well, I'm a coward, so I can't do it. And from there, you have choices. It's like, well, okay, I can go to this jail and get this former sheriff who's been jailed there for being a little too harsh with his sentence for his carrying out of punishments. Okay, like he shot criminals instead of giving them a proper trial, or a more lenient sentence for some things. Or I can basically have the military move in and make put it under martial law. Or I can because of my high skill level at science, I can hack the local robot and turn it into a robot sheriff of the town, which is what I did. So now the town has a robot sheriff named Prim Slim. like shit like that. I mean, that's the type of shit you should have in an RPG, where your skills can change the outcome and you can do different things. It's the reason why I refuse to call Pokemon an RPG, is because every game has a set trail that they want you to do, and you cannot deviate from that. It doesn't reward parallel thinking in that regards to the actual gameplay, because Pokemon isn't about the RPG aspects. It's about monster battling, and teaching your monsters their four moves, and the synergy of the monster's four moves, its typing and its nature, with how those moves are expressed and what skills and abilities have synergy with one another. That's what it's about. It's not about like role playing, storytelling, or anything like that. You know. So yeah, RPGs have been pretty shit as of the last, I would say, 7 years, 7 8 years. They've been pretty shit. I'm not saying all of them. Like you occasionally get your Xenoblade Chronicles X's, your Xenoblade Chronicles, your Xenoblade. Well, I don't think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is that good. um, it's okay. It's not that. It's not great. But yeah, yeah. My ideal RPG, as I said, would just be like this massive. Give me a massive open world where different factions have their own thing going on and the world is dynamic. So like whether or not you do something, if you get a quest and they say this town is being attacked by a necromancer, and they can only hold out for 2 weeks. If you don't make it there in 2 weeks, if you get there like a month later, the town's gone. It's been razed to the ground.
I was about to say, or it's Zombie City.
Well, I mean, like the townspeople that weren't able to flee have been turned into zombies. Like the world is constantly shifting and things are changing. Now, of course, because you can't have a totally dynamic world, there are certain touchstones, like a major capital city. If they're having a war against another city, we're never going to have it where major quests are going to be knocked out unless it'll tell you, well, like this is a major thing. If you do this, a lot of things will change. Quests that are events that are like that aren't gonna like you're not gonna see major cities get destroyed. But yeah, if there's a town and the people there are being harassed by slavers, if you don't help them out, if they say, look, our trade routes are being taken out by bandits and and our populace is being taken by slavers, we need to deal with both of these problems, and you don't help them, that town can eventually
They remember you.
yeah, they're like, look, you didn't help us, or they might eventually get help from some other CPU, uh,
Hero.
general hero, or someone or a villager might make it through the barricade, the barricade, and get to a military outpost or another city or something, and people come and help him. But they'll remember, yeah, this fucker, we asked him for help, he didn't do shit. Fuck him, like that type of thing. I would like to see that in RPG. Will it happen? Probably not, because developers don't want that level of unpredictability.
I was going to say that they consider it a high cost thing.
What?
I was saying that most developers would consider that a high cost idea.
Well, it's not a cost issue. It's just the amount of it's not how much it's going to cost. It's like, okay, I'll give an example. Bethesda tried to do Radiant AI in Elder Scrolls Oblivion. You know what wound up happening?
It
With
was it was not it was not cheap,
No, it's not about the money. Basically,
or it was a glitched up mess.
the Radiant AI basically, like, there was no, okay, let me put it this way. Radiant AI means that the NPCs, the AI subroutines of the NPCs basically determine that they have certain needs that they will go out and try and meet. So if they're hungry, they'll go and get food. If they need armor, they'll go and buy armor. But here's the thing, because there was no social mores or civility or morals built into their code, like if a character needed armor, they would go to an armor shop and buy all the armor. So then when the player came to that armor store, there was no armor there. If
I'm trying not to laugh.
Well, I mean, the idea behind Radiant AI is cool. It would be cool to play an RPG where instead of having to write code for all, hundreds of NPCs, it could all be handled by AI subroutine that had needs and wants and shit like that. That'd be cool. But Bethesda has shitty programmers, so like basically, like, okay, let me put it this way: if someone needed food and they didn't have money with the Radiant AI, they would run and go and steal the food, and then they would get attacked and murdered. So then that character, who may be an important character who gives you a quest, is dead because of the Radiant AI. So you know what? Bethesda did? They turned off the Radiant AI and went back to business as usual. It's not the expense. It's that in order for you to do that, you would have to be dynamite. Like basically, you would have to have a qualitative change in how games are made, and developers don't want to do that. No one wants to do a qualitative change. Wouldn't it be interesting? I mean, I've said this before. Wouldn't it be interesting to have a Legend of Zelda game where, yeah, Link may be the legendary hero, but there's other shit going on?
At times.
I mean, wouldn't it be interesting to play a Legend of Zelda game where there's a town? I mean, I kind of said this in my Idealized RPG segment. Wouldn't it be interesting? There's a town that's feuding with another town, and these two towns are fighting against each other. And if you don't help them, either side, or bring them together, they'll eventually wipe each other out. Or one town will wipe out the other town, or et cetera, et cetera. Or, let's say you clear a fortress of moblins, and, like, you don't tell a local garrison of soldiers that this fortress has been cleared, something else will move into that fortress, and it'll become either tougher or harder depending on what moves in there. Like that's the type of dynamic world that you should be expecting in games that we just will not get because developers don't want to put the type of effort into building that. And I can understand because if it doesn't work, you wind up with the fucked up Radiant AI system we had
And Fallout.
in Oblivion that they had to turn
Oh.
off because it was like, oh, no, we can't do that because characters are killing each other. We can't. Like here's the thing. I will always reward innovation.
My name.
If you're trying to do something innovative and it doesn't work out, at least you tried. Versus just being lazy and doing the same shit over and over again. Unless the same shit over and over again just works. The system is good. Um, like, like Street Fighter 2 created the standard for 2D fighting games. At this point, there's nothing you're going to be able to add to a 2D fighting game that's going to be better than what they did in Street Fighter 2 as far as the basics of like movement and special moves and all that type of shit, right? Because the games that have tried to do something innovative like Eternal Champions, I mean, where's Eternal Champions? There was like 2 games in the series, and that's it.
I was about to say the same Eternal Champions that have direct that have moves that could cut your attacks off or instantly KO you is now dead, right?
Well, part of it was the game design, but a lot of it, I mean, part of it was also that Sega sabotaged that game. Because they were like, Sega of Japan was like, we can only give the push to one game, and it's not going to be Eternal Champions, it's going to be Virtua Fighter. So they sabotaged Eternal Champions for Virtua Fighter on the Genesis. Yeah, Sega's worst enemy in business was not Nintendo or Sony. It was Sega themselves.
Yeah,
Sega
and
kicked their own
people
ass.
said that, and people said that Sega's doing better. They kind of were a bit late to that party.
Well, they're doing better now, but that's because Sega has games that they know they can do well, and then Sega has games that they're like, well, if we do well, if we don't do well, oh well. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's put it this way. I'm of two minds. I'm sad that Sega left the console industry, but it's a good thing because they're no longer just spinning their wheels trying to keep up with someone else's shit. Because that's really what shot Sega in the ass, was them always trying to keep up technologically instead of focusing on the games. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about the games.
Yeah, which kind of shows where, at least that they're starting to come back from how much stupid they've done. But if only they learned this lesson sooner.
So that's So you're
That's
just
neither here or there.
so you're just gonna keep on getting the same shit over and over again, um, repeatedly until the end of time. It's never gonna change. It's never gonna get any better because gamers refuse to hold these companies accountable. Even companies that they like, they refuse to hold them accountable for their lazy, not doing what is good for the genre stuff. So, it is what it is. Let's keep it moving to our next topic, which is nominating our assholes of the week.
And for once, I had 2 a-holes of the week.
Yeah, they're multiple assholes of the week.
One that tweeted something pretty stupid that made me wonder, are you really trying to do what happened with a certain Xbox owner?
Well, hear me out. Okay?
And the other is with EA.
Yeah, hear me out. Okay, hear me out. Okay. Alex Hutchison, who is the creative director for Google Stadia, said that basically, here was his argument. Okay, his argument is that gamers that developers should be getting paid if streamers who are making money off of streaming games are streaming their game. Now, here's the thing. In principle, he is right. And
You better have a big freaking reason for that one.
well, because here's the thing, okay? Um, you should have to pay the IP owner of a property if you're using that IP in order to make money off of their IP. So, for example, if you were to stream, let's say you had a YouTube channel and you had 1 million subscribers, and you took Mary Poppins and you put it on your channel to stream, okay? And people were watching your channel to watch Mary Poppins on your stream. You'd owe Disney or whoever holds the IP of Mary Poppins money because you're using someone's shit to make money. Okay? The principle is you are. That is a fact, okay? Yeah, and you can say, well, I bought the movie. I can stream it however I want, which is what gamers are going to say.
There's a difference, and you're kicking your own ass for this one. It's because this is interactive, not cinematic.
No, I understand where you're coming from. You're right. It is interactive in how the gamers. But look, look. I'm telling you the principle. Okay. In principle, he is correct. In principle, like if you're using someone's shit in order to make money, you really should, in principle, give the person who you're using their shit to make money their intellectual thing, their interactive or whatever experience. You should be giving them money. But here's the thing, okay?
You're
Can I finish before
here.
you start? Okay. The problem.
I'm sorry. It's just that I'm waiting for that line that you're going for.
The problem is that in principle he's right. In practice, it leads to a lot of fucking issues that it's a can of worms that just doesn't make sense. Because here's the thing, okay? By that metric, people who review games should give money to the people that they're reviewing the game for. You get what I'm saying? People who review a movie should pay money to the studio in order to review that movie. When that's not how that works. Like, because I've gotten paid to review movies, and I didn't pay to watch that shit. I have a press pass that I get to watch the movie with, and I didn't pay for it. Okay, like I have a friend who's a tech reporter. He gets paid to review games. It's not the other way around. He's not paying to review that game. He's reviewing it. He's getting paid to review it. People who review books aren't sitting there saying, "Yeah." Reviewers typically get the book for free, and then they review it. So I mean, like, if someone's streaming your shit, you could argue and say, "Well, I paid for this. I can do whatever the hell I want to with it." And that's a fair, in practicality, that is a fair argument. So in principle, like I said, he's right. The people who made that should be getting some type of money. Basically, it's the same reason that you hear video game companies hate used games, because there's a monetary transaction and they aren't getting a cut. Like it's the reason why a lot of video game companies don't like physical media, or moving away from physical media, because you cannot trade a digital game. Once you have a digital game, like they get your money and that's it. Like you can't trade it. The value doesn't really get devalued unless the price is dropped down by them or there's a sale or some shit. So it's like I understand where he's coming from, but I mean the principle, he's right, but in practicality, it'll never happen. The real foot and mouth moment for this guy is that he's the creative director of Stadia, which has been fucking up for the last year and a half at this point. And when you have here's the thing: if Stadia was actually doing well, people would give more credence to what he's saying. But because Stadia is a steaming pile of shit, like my advice to him is, instead of like writing dissertations on how the business model of streaming should be, maybe you should work on getting your streaming service to work. Like you can afford to talk shit when your shit is good. Like, okay, if you are in school, let's say you're in high school, and you have A's and B's, you can afford to talk a little bit of shit. But if you're a DF student, you have no place in class saying shit about anybody else's work. Literally nothing. And that's the problem with this guy talking shit about anybody else's shit. He's like, maybe you need to shut the fuck up and do your job. Maybe that's what you need to do, Alex. Because
I'm sorry. If anything, even if he was doing well, that is a load of crap when you put it into concept. I mean, we if you're doing a review and you're talking about it,
yeah,
then you are trying to say what positives and negatives are of product.
that's true.
That is gonna that can that could lead to sales or lack of sales depending on how the review goes.
Yeah, that's advertisement. You're correct.
And yet you're trying to cut people off by asking them to pay for such reviews, which
That's
is which is against the freaking law.
Well, I mean, that's why I said that. Well, it's not against the law to make people pay to review something. Um,
I mean, if anything, it's basically you're paying them in order to try to get a favorable review.
well, I mean, they are a lot of companies already do that, but it's called bribery. But basically, I mean, like, here's the thing, okay? Like I said, in principle, like I said, in principle, he's right. If basically because basically if you're streaming something and you're making money off of it, like the people who made that game aren't making any money off of it if you're streaming it. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're like, the argument is, well, people are advertising for you. They're giving you free advertising. That's the argument. And we've seen this argument before. Okay, it's like people are like, yeah, well, I'm gonna monetize this video and it's free advertising. No, it isn't.
And this is the fact that I didn't say that it would be a monetized video or not. I'm just saying that a review of a game itself would be monetized, and that's probably just a and that's harsh bribery that could
Yeah.
lead to false sales.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, and a lot of companies do that. I mean, look at the games that were look at Fallout 76. Okay, remember when that game came out? Remember all those big YouTubers who went to that little special thing they had a week before it came out and got all those bennies and were flown out to nice hotels to play the game for like 3 or 4 hours. And like, yeah, it's not that bad. It's great. Yeah. And then the actual game came out and everyone was like, this is a steaming pile of shit. Like, here's the thing, okay? I understand that, developers are like, look, it's not fair that someone can take our work and make a whole bunch of money off of it and we don't see a cut. They're right. It's not fair. But here's the thing. Like, in practicality, like I said, in practice, putting this into an actual model, like, how are you supposed to do that? What are we supposed to say? Okay, if you want to play my game, you got to pay. If you want to stream Mortal Kombat 11, you have to pay Warner Brothers and NetherRealm Studios $5 for an hour of gameplay streaming. So for every hour you stream, you got to pay them $5 an hour. So let's say you stream the game for 3 hours, you owe them $15. Like, how are you going to do that? Like, how do you set a monetary standard for how much the game is worth, to how much for how long you stream it, how many viewers do you have? Like, how do you parse that out? It's a quagmire that's it's untenable. You know what I mean? It's untenable. You know.
And you wonder why I kept on speaking up, because it basically just runs against mostly every kind of moral and logical thing that a that a game company should be doing in a sense.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, practically speaking, principled as in, principally, yes, people should get paid. Like, if you're making money off of someone else's work, they should be getting a cut of that, of the revenue generated. in principle. But here's the thing: the practicality of it. Like, how do you set that up? How do you do it? You can't. It's impossible. You know what I mean? It's like setting up the infrastructure to do that is a quagmire that's untenable. On top of all of that, this guy's having these profound thoughts about the business model of streaming games when he's the creative director of a streaming service that is possibly going to be defunct next year. I'm like, if you have time to work on this shit,
And I was about to say, if you have time to make a commentary like that,
and yet you're in charge of a service like Stadia that is just fucking failing, come on, man. You know, I mean that's where the school analogy comes in. If you are a F student, you do not have the balls to talk about anybody else's work, especially if they're getting higher grades than you. Okay, and that's basically where this guy is. Okay, he's an F student talking about B and C students. Really, if you're an F student, the only thing you can do is shut the fuck up and try to do better. Okay, like that's basically where this guy should be. Just shut the fuck up and try to get your own shit straight, cause you know your own shit's been fucking up for a while now. Other asshole of the week. Uh,
it comes from EA.
yeah, Epic Attitude. So Epic Attitude is being sued in Canada for basically gamifying. Basically, the suit says that they ran an unlicensed illegal gambling um, uh, program with their games because basically loot boxes are essentially a form of gambling. And EA has been doing this, the suits allege, in Canada since 2008. So basically, for 12 years, for over a decade, they've been running a gambling suit um, that's basically been aimed towards children. Because remember, a lot of their games are geared towards teenagers. You know, people who have formative brains that basically the habits that they're going to have for the rest of their life are being formed when they're teenagers. So you know they're releasing games that have uh,
AKA, they're putting gambling in children's video games and trying to
yeah,
make it easy for everyone.
yeah, yeah. So you know they're basically peddling addiction onto your kids, gambling addiction, but addiction nonetheless. They're feeding into that. So kids who might not have a predilection towards gambling are being tempted to having it, and kids who do have a predilection towards gambling, this is feeding into that into that particular neurosis. So between EA and Alex Hutchison, those are our two nominations for asshole of the week.
It's a close race, but if anything, I it's said that I have to give EA this one, but it's only slight.
No, it's no contest because Alex Hutchison said this shit for this year, and in principle, like in my opinion, in principle, people deserve to have, like, for example, if I made a video game and someone was streaming my video game, like I would want some type of remuneration for them using my shit to make money. But with that being said, how I would get remuneration for them using my game to make money, it's a quagmire. Like the only thing I could really do is sue them. I don't think it should be like a law or anything. But EA has been doing this shit for 12 years, and you know, like they're peddling gambling to children. Like, you know, I that's pretty assholish.
I was saying both are a-holes because that's affecting people, whether they're making money or just showing something for the heck of it.
I mean, like I said, the principle of people getting money for people using their work in order to make money, I mean, you know, people should get money. People should get some type of monetary remuneration for you using their work to make money. Um, but how like the practicality of it is it's a legal quagmire for that. But there's no gray area with EA.
Yeah.
EA has basically been peddling gambling simulators to children.
Ever since
So
they ever since they had their EA Sports.
well, I mean, this is probably it got big with EA Sports, but they were doing it with their mobile games too. So
I was saying EA Sports did it first, but still, you're
yeah.
right.
So yeah, they've been doing this shit for a while, and I don't know what to say except
Congratulations, EA. You got you you got the golden turd and the a-hole of the week to spit it out of.
you are our asshole of the week. Week. Asshole of the week, EA. Last week I think it was Ubisoft or somebody, but this week it's EA. So EA gets to be asshole of the week.
Actually, you got it right. It was Ubi.
Yeah,
Oh God,
Ubi shit.
there's jokes
Yeah,
all over now.
Ubi shit is more apt, but this week it's EA or
Epic ass.
Epic ass. So yeah, EA, you are the assholes of the week for peddling gambling addiction to young kids. So then they can grow up and be gamblers, and then they can be, old people and gamblers because gambling addiction is really hard to beat. Look at Ben Affleck. Like he beat it for a while and he came back. And Ben Affleck has tons of money and he's a gambling addict. So, that's even worse.
That's scary when you think about it.
Yeah, well, addiction is hard, but gambling addiction, like the thing about gambling is that it's not like gambling isn't like drug addiction where as long as they don't have access to drugs, they're
It's
good.
it's sad because you have to limit money, which is something that you need in order to do certain things.
Well, I mean, not just that, but the need to gamble, it comes from a drug that is produced by your own body. So basically,
Dopamine.
yeah, anything that they do that has a gambling aspect to it, they get into it and they get that gambler's rush. So yeah, EA, fuck off. You're the asshole of the week. So with that being said, I think we've covered everything. Anything you wanna bring up before we wrap things up?
Actually, I only got one question. What are we doing on Halloween night?
Let's see, Halloween night. Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, there will be no trick or treating in my neighborhood, so I actually might do a Halloween special for the 31st. I'm thinking I might do a Halloween special based on I don't know, scary video games. That sound good? Scary video games.
Yeah, though if anything, I'm the one that's probably going to be in the most torture because if anything, that means all the spooky sheep is going to be about.
I mean, but there's some video games that are scary that don't necessarily fit the model of that's scary. It just might be scary to you.
Yeah, though if anything, at least you could at least the at least the horror theme ain't going to be coming out to bite me.
Yeah. I mean,
At least I think.
I don't really like horror video games that much. I think that the horror aspect is always badly utilized.
And don't get me started on the zombies.
Well, I mean, even zombies are kind of stupid. Because I mean, think about it. Like the true thing about if you're watching a horror movie or reading a horror novel, the whole point is that sense of dread that you get that you can't do anything. You know something horrible is going to happen, but you can't do anything. But in a video game, you can do tons of shit. Like if you're playing Resident Evil and a zombie's coming after you, you have a gun. You can shoot the zombie. It's like that's nothing. There's nothing scary about that.
True, though if anything, they force you into horror because of ammunition and other things.
Yeah, but even then, like, there's so much shit you can do if you're attacked by a zombie or something's coming after you. But in a horror movie, it's like, man, I know something horrible is gonna happen, and there's nothing I can do. This person's just gonna die horrifically. You know, for me, the scariest movies I remember seeing when I was a kid were movies that had that sense of dread. The sense of dread was scarier than the actual horrific act, if you get what I'm saying. Like, the
Yeah.
idea of the horrifying thing is scarier than the thing itself. But that's just my own personal opinion. Um, I would tell everyone go out and watch Borat, the new Borat movie on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing. It starts out kind of weak, but towards the last third of that movie is so good. It's so good and so fucked up. Here's all I'm gonna say. It involves a man trying to do some really fucked up shit, and it's hilarious. And I liked it. So with that being said,
That's the end of the podcast. Don't forget that you can reach us by email, by Twitter, by Discord, wherever your internet needs may vary.
that's right. And you can reach the channel via Gmail at mrredfoxbsbuster@gmail.com or Matthew Wesley at mrredfox91 or a link to the Discord in the chat. So with that being said, that's the end of the podcast. Remember, rate, comment, share, subscribe, all that
Peace.
jazz.
And don't forget, hype responsibly and vote for Pete's sake.
Yeah, yeah. Although really at this point, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I already voted.
Same.
Literally, early voting started in my state September 18th. And September 20th, I picked up my mail ballot came to my house, and I filled it out and dropped it off at my ballot box. I was like, yeah, shit, I'm getting this shit out the way. And they're still calling me. Have you voted? Yes, I voted. God damn it, I voted. Stop calling me.